Hi, I'm Lorne Epstein, the host of Your Hired Radio. I'm glad you're with us today. I was in San Francisco a few weeks back, and I interviewed a bunch of people at the HR Tech World Conference. I just want to let you know that it was HR Tech World. A couple times I said HR Tech Conference, I misspoke. So we hope you enjoy the show. It's about all things HR technology. A lot of them are fascinating shows about the future of work and the current economy. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of You're Hired. I'm your host, Lorne Epstein. You're listening to 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. As you can hear in the background, there's some noise. I am in San Francisco this week at HR Tech Conference. We have lots of folks here, experts on HR, technology, and recruiting. I'm sitting here in one of the booths with my friend William Tincup. William has been in talent acquisition for a very long time, like 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
And right now he is the president of a blog called Recruiting Daily. And Recruiting Daily writes about topics that recruiters are interested in. So William knows a lot about recruiting, not about what we would call talent acquisition. And we're going to talk about branding today. So a lot of you have heard about branding. And it means kind of like how you look to people in the world. But you're looking for a job, or maybe you're an employer and you want to kind of get a better sense of how branding could connect to what you're talking about. So that's going to be our conversation today with William. William, welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lord. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, man.
First of all, thanks for being at this trade show. I think it's just going to be a great experience for both of us. And we use a lot of lingo in our space and a lot of lingo in our industry. So we sex up or church up talent acquisition. At the end of the day, it's just hiring. How do you hire?
Yeah.
You have an opening, whether or not someone left or you just created some growth, and you're hiring. And so these folks here care about both the hire, but they also care about what happens after the hire. So what companies would call like payroll or benefits or compensation or performance, they care about it, but it's after the hire. You and I have spent a majority of our lives on the front end of that, working with how do people get hired?
Yeah.
How do you hire? Right. And how do you get hired?
Yeah. So, we were talking about what we wanted to talk about today on the show, and we said branding. And so if, someone's listening to the show, how can they apply the concept of branding to help them get a job? Or if they're an employer, how they would use branding as a way to attract people to their organization?
It's such a great question, and I'll tell you what I did, how I got there. Tom Peters wrote a book in the mid-'90s called A Brand Called You. And essentially what he did in that book was he applied product marketing to humans. So you as a human being, you have benefits and features and attributes, and you're like Tide. In fact, I think that was the cover of the book, was Tide. But the idea, the mentality is, if you think like that, then you start like, what do you think if I were to say Land Rover? Your mind automatically goes to a space, and you have this idea of what Land Rover is, what it represents.
Right.
Like it's already told you we're high quality, we're expensive.
I think of a white upper middle class couple.
Right.
Traveling in some off-road kind of place.
That's right. So it's adventure and it's outgoing. Like you have all these brand attributes. Well, we have those too. When I say my name to somebody, I'm looking for something, they already kind of have an idea, rightly or wrongly. They have an idea and a perception of my brand.
And Tincup is your proper name.
And Tincup is my proper name.
Which is a great last name.
Right. I mean, if you're going to have a last name.
One of the things that William did, it was a few years ago when you were doing your own marketing company, he had a business card which had all of his contact information on it, but it was a firecracker.
Yep.
And I kept that thing for years. It was a real firecracker with a little fuse on it, and it was so creative. It made such an impression on me that I'll never forget that.
Well, here's the thing. So as an agency, we came into a market and they were very conservative players. A lot of sweater vests. And so what we said is, okay, we can't compete with them and be more conservative. We also believe that great marketing comes from the outside. Like, you really want to be innovative, you can't do it internally because you have too much political capital wrapped up in it. So you're not going to recommend the crazy idea to the boss because you'll get fired. So what we basically said is we've got to blow stuff up.
Right.
We've got to let people know we're going to blow stuff up.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to work with us, that's great.
Yeah.
But if they do, they know that we're going to blow stuff up. So the fuse and all the iconography was all purposeful to then let people know, hey, you want to hire somebody conservative, there's great firms out there.
So let's talk about you, because you know you and I know you a little bit. So your branding, your personal branding, is what? Would you define it, and what is it you do to accentuate the who that you are?
I think two things come to mind: harsh, but fair. I consider myself a career learner. So I don't purport to be perfect or purport to be the person that has all the answers. So there's always a kind of a modification of what I've learned. That's the fair part. The harsh, I just don't believe we're here on the planet that long to play games. So
right, but how does that come out? Because I know you, and for people who will see you, we'll take a picture. But you've got a beard. Sure. You wear jeans. Sure. You're casual. Sure. You're pretty forthright. Yesterday in your talk, you used a lot of slides that were colorful, right? And is that you? That
is exactly me.
That's exactly you.
So what I've done with the game, instead of making it multifaceted and multi-front, I've actually made myself one-dimensional. If you were to meet me at a soccer game, with my kids, I'm the same guy.
Right.
If you meet me at a PTA meeting, or if you meet me in a boardroom, I'm the same guy. So I'm literally the same guy everywhere you meet.
That's great. I mean, that's great. I think that's the way to be. But if somebody's like, well, I work in a conservative place, I'm not going to show my colorful language. How do they show who they are as part of their brand?
I don't think you can ever thrive. And I think if the goal is thrive, if the goal is survive, then I think you can do that for a very long period of time. But if it's thrive, if the goal is to thrive, I don't think you can do it long term. I think at one point,
no, you couldn't. But some of the people who are in conservative organizations are actually conservative. They have ideas. I guess what you're saying is who you are.
At one point, it
show
comes
that out. Just put it out.
At one point, it comes out. You attract, your vibe attracts your tribe, which is a Muse saying that at the end of the day, that colorful language is actually who you are.
Right.
You're putting on a face to go to work, which is great. Again, survive or thrive. If the goal is to survive, keep doing that.
So what would be some of the things? And some people do need jobs, right? But let's just talk about both. In that, what are some of the things, the characteristics that I or someone would pull out to put out there as my brand?
I think the more you bring the game to you and your authentic self. So one of this is, who are you? Really, where are you? Where are you in your life? Where are you in your mentality? Where do you want to be? So there's an aspirational you, and then there's an actual you. So let's just deal with the actual you. Where are you really? Not a grandiose version of yourself, but who are you? Okay, so once you do that, the game becomes, how do you bring the world to you?
So I'm fun and playful. I'm also very casual. Sure. So how would I put that in my personal brand? Actually, something that was mentioned yesterday was employee value proposition versus individual value proposition, which is something that Bill
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
How do I project that? How do I put it on my resume? How do I put it on my LinkedIn page?
So what are you the most proud of? You were an Eagle Scout. You graduated.
Actually, I'm most proud of this radio show.
Okay, so that would be the thing you lead with. And it doesn't matter if it's church or a marriage or the fact that you do comedy on the side.
So you think it's okay if I do comedy on the side, or I'm really into my church? Lead with that.
Yeah.
And lead with that in the attempt. So let's finish the equation of that. This is who I am. Organizations. If you want someone like that, I'm the right guy.
Accept the whole
right guy.
me.
Yeah.
Accept the whole me, or don't. Either be repelled by it, or be attracted to it. I don't mind if people are I use colorful language, so I'll just be honest about that. So
just not on my show.
No. We had FCC, so no, I wouldn't do that. But in almost every conversation I have with a client, a prospect, an employee, etc., I will curse. Not purposely, it's not forced. It's just that's how I talk. That's how I grew up talking. Like it's just normal. It's not like colorful language. It's just language, and those are the words I use. And if you're repulsed by that, which is totally fine, no value judgment, then you'll never be around me a lot, which is good for me and good for you.
Okay, so let's talk about the fear that probably some people are hearing and feeling in hearing that. It's like, oh my God, like there are going to be people who don't want me, like right? Because that's what we're saying. And so, so that's real.
Yeah,
that fear is real.
That's awesome.
And the other side of the fear is the possibility of working with people who are in your, what did you call it?
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah.
So the thing is people that you want around you long term are accepting.
I think that's going to call the title of this show. Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah, and I think that's Catherine Minshew at the Muse. I want to give her credit because I kind of love that bit. But the thing is like the whole you is going to show up at one point or not.
Right.
Now that's just going to happen. It might be at a Christmas party. You might get hammered, say some inappropriate things. That's actually who you are.
Right.
And you're just hiding it. And I think that, again, to survive, you do whatever you have to do to survive.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I know a lot of people who are just like, I need a job. I don't have the luxury of being like my authentic self because I don't want to piss off some employer that might hire me and give me money so I can pay my bills.
Sure. So again, that's survive. That's great. Do what you have to do to survive. I mean, we get down
But there's really no negotiating in survival mode. When you're in survival mode, you're in it.
No.
You got to do what you got to do.
You cannot be your authentic self. You've actually made the conscious decision to cede that and say, I'm not going to be me, but I'm going to make that check. I got to get that paper to take care of these bills.
You think that's the price people pay?
That's exactly the price.
Right? So the price that people pay, and do you think it needs to be paid?
No, because I think as a society we should accept people for who they are.
Right.
Ultimately, our society is at fault, truthfully.
So you think even companies like the owner on down, they're all kind of faking it? They're all faking it. They're really all a bunch of foul-mouthed, drunken sailors who... Right.
But we're all deeply flawed, and I guess that's the point, is we all have vices. We're all deeply flawed. No one's perfect.
Right.
So are they all drunks, or are they all curse a lot? Oh, I don't know. But I know that they have something. That I do know.
Right.
And that's not coming to work. But it's worse than that. It's we don't accept other people.
Right.
Like for some of the same things we do.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like that CEO in that example not accepting someone for cursing when they curse.
Right.
Which is almost criminal.
Right.
So I think the thing, you make a decision, either I'm bringing my authentic self, my whole self to work, or I'm not. And if I'm not, I'm getting that paper, I'm in survival mode, which is fine.
But that doesn't really have a company be extraordinary.
Nope.
Because all that communicates through to the clients, to the product, to the service.
All you've created is C, B, and D talent. You
C, B, and D talent.
You can't be a talent and not be yourself.
Right. So something happened to you since the last time we saw each other.
Sure.
That was pretty profound.
It was.
And, so I saw you in October.
Yep.
Was it October?
Yep.
Of 2016.
Yep.
Now it's June of 2017. 7 months ago.
Yes, I was down at a conference in Austin, Texas, and I was driving home, and exiting the highway, a guy ran into me.
Wow.
And pushed me back into traffic. I went
under another car, a big truck, or?
He was in a pickup truck, but he pushed me under a semi.
And you were in a Prius?
A Prius, which is a wonderful car. But I wrecked everything on my left side, so I broke everything on my left side. Got a bunch of metal in there, but what I've learned through this experience is that everyone goes through trauma. You don't go through life unscathed. It's almost like you tell your kids you don't go through high school unscathed. There's always something that happens in high school. It's true in life. You don't make it to the end of your life and go, wow, that was easy. There's always something. Somebody got cancer. Somebody, lost a limb. Somebody got in an accident. Whatever. This was one of those moments for me where character is built. Is how do you respond to adversity?
So what happened? So you have a wife and 2 kids, right?
I do.
And so what happened with your wife?
My wife She was a trooper. Oh my God, she was at the hospital the entire time.
Do you remember looking at her face the first time she saw you?
No, I think the first time I saw her, because I never lost consciousness in the accident. I never lost consciousness the whole time until I went to surgery. So he shot me with 4 things of morphine, and because my arm was essentially in the back seat, and so they shot me with a bunch of morphine. So by the time I called her from the car, so literally I'm under the truck, fluids are coming into the car. I'm like, hey, I've been in an accident. Please come down here. You know, like I was.
Did you know how bad you were?
It's interesting, Lorne. And I think a lot of people do this. I disconnected from reality.
Yeah.
Like I could see blood coming out of my leg.
Yeah.
And I knew my arm was in the back seat. And I basically said.
Now, when you say in the back seat, it was still attached to you.
It was barely. It was still attached to me, but it was in the back seat.
Yeah.
And I knew that hurt, but I told myself, deal with that later. Like right now, just get through the next.
Right.
Get out of the car, go to the hospital, get to the next place. I disconnected from reality. I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah. And so how did this affect your life and your relationship with your kids?
It gave me a lot of time to think, which is good. It gave me a lot of time to reflect on relationships and what's important, which I think a lot of people, when they go through trauma, that's a natural response. I think for me, one of the blessings of the accident is my boys, 11 and 7, they got to see their father go through recovery. And I never got that. My dad was Superman, still is Superman.
Were they scared?
They never showed it.
Was your wife scared?
Yeah, but she never showed it either. No one ever showed it. When they left the room, they might have been terrified. But at the time, like when I was going through recovery, I was on a lot of opiates, and the opiates were making me vomit. And so I would vomit, like we could be right here, and all of a sudden I got to vomit. And my kids were troopers because they picked stuff up. They brought me bags. They literally, at 7 and 11 years old, they stepped in, and so they got to see, and they got to see that hospital, surgery, wheelchair, rehab, cane, building a ramp into the house. Like I got to see all of that.
So do you all talk about this now, like what happened and how people felt through the experience?
No, I think the thing is, what I've learned is when they go through adversity, my wife and I are going to be able to point back to this and say, well, you remember when your father went through that accident, you remember that process, day by day, just getting a little bit better, doing all the things you got to do to get better. You'll do that too. Right. And so that idea of recovery and the idea of how you get better is a blessing.
We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Your Hired Radio. My name's Lorne Epstein on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. I'm here with William Tincup. We'll be back in just a minute. Hi, I'm your host, Lorne Epstein. You're listening to You're Hired, playing here on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. If you'd like to listen to us on the radio, we play on Mondays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on 96.7 FM. If you miss that show, you can always listen to us on the web at mixcloud.com, Your Hired Radio. If you're interested in being on the show, you can give us a call at 240-876-0276. And if you want to follow us on Facebook, go to Facebook and punch in Your Hired Radio. Also, we're on LinkedIn. You can reach me at Your Hired Radio. And I'm in space at Your Hired Radio. Welcome back to the show. You're listening to Your Hired Radio. I'm your host, Lorne Epstein, and we're talking to William Tincup about branding, and he was telling us a story about quite a horrific accident, and right now you're walking around, and you're in good shape.
Yeah, I'm nurturing 2 things. I've got some cartilage in my knee, which makes my walk a little ginger, and I've got some nerve damage in my arm, but you know what? I'm alive.
Yeah.
And that's all that, for me, every day above ground is a win.
So we talked a little bit earlier about branding.
Sure.
What else? I mean, given that we just learned that there are more people, there are more jobs than there are people looking for jobs, and we're going to talk about this on the show, how we kind of bridge that gap, because it seems like it's a skills gap. But for the folks who aren't working, they're having a hard time finding a job, or they're having a hard time changing jobs. What can we tell them?
Well, first of all, there's hope. And I think that's one of the things I would tell you is that because the economy is better than it was in some of the recent past, there's hope. You can retrain. You can go back to college. You can find a different field. Like if the field, I tell this to startups all the time, that the market tells you where you are if you listen. So we tell the market where we are, but at the end of the day, your customers tell you where you are. So true is it when you're an individual in a job market. So let's say that you've been a machinist, and that's been your bit all your life, and maybe even you love.
So a machinist is somebody who takes drills and drill presses and like forms metal.
Right. So let's say that's what you've done for a long time. Let's say you're pretty good at it, but you can't get a machinist job. Essentially, the market is telling you to change. And it's just a question of, are you listening to that or not? And are you willing to do what it takes to change? And change is hard for everybody. It's not easy. Technology change especially is difficult. But at the end of the day, the market tells you everything if you listen.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, it's a very profound thing to say. Is that I think a lot of people go like, well, hey, I did my part for society. I got my degree. I'm an accountant or I'm a this, and I'm just going to keep doing that because it's all I know how to do. But really, we can't do that anymore.
Nope.
That's done.
That's gone.
And so
I'm not sure it was ever here. I think there was a perception of that being here. I think the free agency in sports in the 70s essentially broke the covenant between company and employee, and now we're all free agents. Companies don't think about employees in the way that they used to. Employees don't think of companies in the way that they used to.
Right.
So that ship is all sailed. But a lot of it comes down to just because they say this in finance all the time about investments. Past performance is not predictive of future performance.
Right.
So what you did in the past doesn't really matter. It's where are you going to add value today? And I think that's the thing to solve for. And again, if you're looking for that job and it's like, I've been an accountant, well, what other things are to the left and to the right of accountant that might be a better fit for you?
Right. So what have you done through your career? Like, tell us a little bit about your story arc.
Well, so
how old are you now?
I have 48.
Okay.
So one of the things I would tell, and I tell this to young people all the time, is careers never make sense in the windshield. They always make sense in the rearview mirror. Okay? So I worked for Walmart.
Out of college.
Actually out of high school, and I worked in Bentonville with Sam Walton, and I was about to be the youngest store manager in their history, and I hadn't been to college, and I wanted to go to college. I'd been there about 6 years, and I talked to all the people. I said I want to go back to college, and so I left Walmart, really thinking I was going to come back. So I went to the University of Alabama, got a degree in art history, and it's funny how that happened, because I was talking to the career counselor, and she goes, Will, here's the deal. 1 in 4 work in their major, 25%. So you got a 25% chance of working in your major at the end of graduation. So really, my advice to you is get whatever degree you want. It doesn't matter. Be happy. Make it easy on yourself. What's easy for you? I'm like, well, I've been an artist all my life. So like, great, do art. So I went and studied art history, and it was easy. She was right. I did it in 3 years, actually. I did my undergrad in 3 years. And at the point, I wanted to be a curator. So I kind of switched off of Walmart, and at one point through that art experience, I was like, I really want to curate art. I really want to work for a museum. So I went and did a master's degree at the University of Arizona in museum studies and American Indian studies. And I did that, always thinking I was going to be a curator. So I did internships in DC at the Smithsonian, a couple different Smithsonians, and I found out that curators of museums don't make a lot of money. Okay, that was news to me. So at that point, it turns out. So I got my MBA after that. I was like, okay, I can't do that. Maybe later on in life.
Where'd you go for your MBA?
Do I now?
Where'd you go for your MBA?
So I went to Case Western in Cleveland. It's a regional school.
Yeah.
And I had my MBA paid for. So I had.
You paid for your MBA?
Yeah.
Who?
So I had
who paid
the score. The school.
The school gave you a scholarship for your MBA? Wow, that's unusual.
Totally paid. So the good news there is I went through the MBA experience thinking I would go to Wall Street, assuming that I would go to, Wall Street or consulting is really all I was looking at. The last semester of B school, I decided to go into entrepreneurship. So when I got out, I literally went back to Dallas, and
This is in the 90s?
And I worked at a startup, web
tech
development,
startup.
and a tech startup, and we raised a bunch of money, blew through it, made a lot of mistakes, and then I opened up my own agency.
You're an advertising agency.
My own agency.
And you did that for how long?
A decade. And so advertising, PR, interactive, all the agency work is very, very similar. You can do it for a short period, or you can do it for a long period. If you do it, the longer you stay in it, the more jaded you become. So I did it for a decade, but I got out. I sold my equity of that. Then I built a consulting firm.
Consulting for what?
User adoption of tech software. Because I'd fallen in love with software at the time, and I'm like, there's got to be a way to get people to fall in love with this. There's just got to be a way to market it differently. So I did that, and then I started looking at how we research and how do we actually get to a point where we learn faster in the technology space. So I opened up a market research firm and did that, studied all kinds of things like user adoption and implementations. It was fun. And then I joined Recruiting Daily, and really
and
now
Recruiting
I'm
Daily is
it's a media play.
But is it more than just the blog?
Oh yeah. We have events, we do services, we have
And what got you into the recruiting space?
So what's great is I consulted with them. So they were high. And
recruiting blogs.
Recruiting Daily. So we were getting to the end of it. We were getting kind of anxious, like, what are we going to do? We both wanted me to stay. I wanted to stay. They wanted me to stay, and so we worked out a deal. And I get a lot of my juice, if you will, comes from working with startups. I love working with entrepreneurs. I love working with startups. And so this allows me the opportunity to still work with startups.
Right.
And do advice and do advisory work. And
cool.
Media is fun, but again, just play out what I just told you. None of that makes sense. None of it. Now it makes sense totally when I'm looking in that rearview mirror. Like I understand the steps.
So what would you want people to know? Last couple of thoughts.
Yeah, I think the thing is the closer, if you're really trying to get to a thrive, the closer you could be to being your whole self, your authentic self, the better. And maybe it's not the whole thing.
Right.
Maybe there's certain things you're not proud of or whatever, but okay, that's fine. Maybe not the whole, but the more you bring, the more successful you'll be. 2, think of yourself as a brand.
Yeah, and how can people reach out to you if they want to?
Just type in William Tinka to Google. I'm extremely easy to find on the internet.
Okay, cool. William, thanks so much for being on the show.
Absolutely, Lorne. I appreciate it. I appreciate the radio show. You're doing great work. Thank you.
And thanks again for listening to another edition of You're Hired. You're listening to 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. We'll see you next week.